Hi, today we are smoking a tobacco called Squadron Leader. But before we do, let me tell you about a scandal that rocked the British tobacco industry to its very foundations. It involves a passionate love affair, a furious husband, and quite possibly the most furious argument ever to occur behind a tobacco factory. Welcome to the Tainted Tavern.
Come into the Tainted Tavern, come sit a while for free. We talk about our musings and devices we've been using.
Okay, now Squadron Leader is an English style blend. That is that it's heavy on latakia and contains Virginias and other Oriental leaves. Now the English style does not point to a specific geographical location such as England, and these days most English style tobacco blends are made elsewhere. Denmark makes a lot, America, the USA makes some fantastic English style tobacco blends. But the way that the English style originally developed was going back a couple of centuries when England, and London especially, was probably the tobacco blending capital of the world. They had easy access to a lot of good quality Virginia leaf from the USA, and they had latakia, which came from far-flung sections of the British Empire, Syrian latakia, Cyprian latakia, and of course Oriental leaves, which also came from the far-flung corners of the once powerful English Empire, or the British Empire, whatever you want to call it. But historically, British pipe smokers, and this is going back through the mist of history, where we'll be travelling in a moment when I tell you the dreadful scandal that rocked Victorian Kendal to its very core. English and British pipe tobacco smokers preferred a more earthy, natural tobacco taste, and that coming from other parts of the world. The Americans were always historically fond of flavourings, exotic flavourings in their tobacco, such as rum and so forth. But British pipe smokers, by and large, preferred a more earthy, natural tobacco taste. And so English tobacco developed from that preference. There's also another tobacco style called the Balkan style. But the Balkan style is very much the English style, with slightly more emphasis on the Orientals to give it that spiciness. And these days, the words Balkan mix and English style are interchangeable and merged together. But as I say, this Squadron Leader, we're just going to pop it open here, and we're going to smoke it in my newer of my Morgan Bones pipes. This pipe has only had 2 bowls taken through it, so it's not fully broken in yet, but I'm very much enjoying using it. So we're going to use the Morgan Bones pipe. We're just going to pop the Squadron Leader open here. It's in a standard knife type tin, knife flip tin they used to call them back in the day. Opens rather nicely. When you open the tin, you get a lovely cut little card there of the Hoggarth Tobacco House in Scandel in the Lake District. There's greaseproof paper covering up the tobacco. This is a fine ribbon cut. Nice and moist straight out of the tin, a brand new tin. You can see it's a mixture here of light and darker tobaccos, though nothing really dark. There's nothing like a Cavendish style within this blend. This is latakia, Virginia, and some Oriental tobaccos to add that spiciness. But the main component by far, in terms of taste of any English style, is latakia or latica, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And so I'm going to bring this closer to the camera a minute. You can just see the tobacco in there. So there is the tobacco. Now what is interesting about this tin, and this is a brand new tin bought last week from those wonderful people at GQ Tobaccos. What's interesting about this tin is here on the front, we've got the dreadful government elf warning. We've also got one of them on the back, but we're going to know that. But it says Samuel Gawith, Squadron Leader, because of course Samuel Gawith are the tobacco house with an history that stretches back a couple of centuries that have always made Squadron Leader. But on the back we've also got another government elf warning, but we've got down here Gawith Hoggarth, original, traditional English. Gawith Hoggarth, of course, was until very recently, 2015 I believe they merged, a separate tobacco house. But that wasn't always the case, and there was once, originally in Kendal, in the Lake District, one tobacco producer formed by Thomas Harrison. But when he died in the 19th century, the tobacco house there were a number of heirs. Most notably in this story is Samuel Gawith and John Hoggarth. They had a bit of a falling out, and the tobacco house broke apart and became Gawith Hoggarth and Samuel Gawith, two separate tobacco manufacturers operating in the same Lakeland area. And you sharing much of the same machinery, the Victorian machinery that is still used today at the Gawith Hoggarth Samuel Gawith factory, because many years later, as I said, I'm not sure if I got the date wrong here, but I think it was 2015, they came together again, they re-merged because one of the companies was facing a little bit of problems, and it was either sell that company, and no doubt there would have been loads of buyers. A lot of the Danish tobacco manufacturers, the Scandinavian tobacco company would have definitely purchased either Samuel Gawith or Gawith Hoggarth, because that would have been a feather in their cap, as they have collectively these Danish and other tobacco manufacturers have over the years purchased a lot of historical tobacco factories. But what Gawith Hoggarth and Samuel Gawith decided to do, in order to protect their legacy, in order to keep their tobaccos being produced in the same way today as they've always been produced, and that is using the Victorian machinery and the traditional styles, and thankfully for us pipe smokers, they came to a decision that they'd re-merge the two concerns. So Samuel Gawith and Gawith Hoggarth are once again one tobacco blending operation, just as they were in the dim days of history. But why did they split up 200 years ago? Now that is the question, and a very interesting story. Before tins of Squadron Leader ever sat on a tobacco shelves, the town of Kendal in the Lake District witnessed a scandal that could have come straight out of a Dickens. Now I must point out that the story I'm about to tell is considered Kendal folklore, and there's no historical documentation to prove that it actually occurred. And most tobacco historians, when looking at why the once mighty Kendal tobacco broke apart and became Gawith Hoggarth and Samuel Gawith, was down to an inheritance issue and an argument over inheritance. There is the folklore tale that there was an affair between John Hoggarth's wife and Samuel Gawith, the Devon, or rather Samuel Gawith's wife and John Hoggarth. That is the story. That, as I say, is unsubstantiated, and it is considered by many to be Kendal folklore. But this is the Tainted Tavern, and we prefer our stories to be a little more colourful, if dubious on historical fact. So let's imagine.
In the mid-1800s, the tobacco works in Kendal were run by the extended Gawith family, a formidable clan who had built their reputation grinding snuff and pressing pipe tobacco beside the picturesque rivers of the Lake District. But one of these men may have been grinding a little more than snuff. Among the partners were two men, Samuel Gawith, steady, respected and proud of his family name, and John Hoggarth, ambitious, charismatic, and perhaps a little too fond of Kendal's social life. Now, Kendal was not London. It was a small town, which meant everybody knew everybody's business, and before long whispers began drifting through the mill workers and the snuff grinders. These whispers concerned Mrs. Gawith and Mr. Hoggarth. According to the tale, workers began noticing strange things. A lantern burning late behind the tobacco warehouse. Footsteps in the yard long after the grinding mills had stopped. Mr. Hoggarth tending to his fine head of hair, seemingly just to take an evening constitutional. One apprentice swore that he had seen a gentleman's hat and a lady's shawl disappear into the darkness of the alley behind the curing sheds. In a town that smelled permanently of tobacco, gossip travelled faster than Latakia smoke in a stiff Lakeland breeze. Eventually the rumours reached Samuel Gawith himself. Interestingly, the historical records don't even tell us the name of Samuel Gawith's wife, which means if there was a scandal behind the tobacco works, then Victorian Kendal kept its secrets very close to its chest. One evening, so the story goes, Gawith left the mill early. He walked through the narrow cobbled lane behind the factory, the very place where the curing shed stood, and there beneath the lamplight he found them, Hoggarth and his wife, entangled together in a lover's embrace. Words were exchanged, Victorian words, which is to say they were probably polite and lasted for about 10 seconds. "You bounder! You cod! Not a single wanker, shithead or randy bastard to be heard." Then fists started flying. The story says the two men fought right there in the yard behind the tobacco works, while startled workers looked on from the doors of the mill. They fought with a ferocity usually reserved for prize fighters, and all over the affections of a sweet lass, said to be rather generous of bosom. Barrels rolled, caps fell off, someone shouted, "The waters are coming!" And by the time the dust settled, the partnership between the two men was finished forever. Soon afterwards, the Kendal tobacco business divided into two rival houses, Samuel Gawith and Gawith Hoggarth. Two companies, same town, same tobacco traditions. They even shared much of the same machinery and apparently a penchant for the same woman. But if the story is to be believed, then no love was lost between them. Now historians will tell you that the split was probably just a business matter, but pipe smokers rather like this other version. That somewhere behind those Kendal tobacco works, a Victorian love affair, a scandal of Dickensian proportions, and a good old-fashioned fistfight helped create two of Britain's most famous tobacco houses. Well, we can all hold on to our pipe dreams. But if Hoggarth really did run off with Mrs. Gawith, the randy bastard, at least something good came out of the argument. Two tobacco houses, 2 centuries of pipe blends, and tonight we're smoking one of them. So let's fill a pipe and see if Squadron Leader is worthy of all this Victorian drop. Okay, I've just got my drink, and what are we drinking today? Well, today we are drinking Butty Bach Premium Ale, which comes in at 4.5%. It comes from the Wye Valley Brewery up on the Wye. The back tells us that Butty Bach Premium Ale. Butty Bach is a Welsh term for little friend, and this Moorish brew certainly has made a few friends in its time. Crafted from fine ingredients including extra pale Maris Otter, malted barley. Butty is a burnished gold in colour and boasts a smooth, satisfying taste. Well, I've drunk this stuff several times in the past, and I can concur that it is indeed a very fine brew. So let's get it open and poured, and then we'll light up our bowl, and we'll smoke some of the Squadron Leader in order to calm our nerves after that dreadful scandal. The cad, the bounder. So there we are. It's nice, soft in terms of head, but then it's a bitter style beer, they always are. There's some level of carbonation in there, but this is not a lager, of course, so we wouldn't expect too much carbonation. Take it to the nose. A nice, clean beer aroma. That's fantastic. That's a nice traditional style beer, which no doubt will pair well with our traditional English style tobacco that we're going to be smoking, and that is Squadron Leader. So without further ado, let's spark up a bowl, let's get it alight, and let's talk about Squadron Leader from Samuel Gawith and Gawith Hoggarth, deep in Kendal. Perhaps I should mention before I light the pipe the tin note that you get straight out of the tin. I do like that little card insert there of the Kendal factory.
Very earthy tobacco aroma. I may be being colourful here, but I'm imagining freshly mown fields in a summer country meadow. It's been a while since I've smoked this stuff. The Squadron Leader was always a favourite of mine, but then I do favour English style blends. They are my favourite style of pipe tobacco. I do like Latakia. Okay, there's a charring light, lightly tamped down. As I say, this Morgan Bones is a fairly new pipe. It's not fully broken in yet, so I've only filled it to just about the 3/4 mark in the bowl. And I've allowed it lightly packed, so it's rather airy to take in the air there, because we don't want to, we want to take our time in breaking in the pipe to get a nice coating inside the briar. I do like these Morgan Bolt pipes.
As I watch the sun descending and the birds fly home to rest.
Right away, the taste is what I've expected. It's like I've never been away from this stuff. It's
In the hush when day is ending, that's the hour when I feel blessed. Smoking my pipe.
You're getting that delicious campfire earthiness of the Latakia. There's some sweetness with the Virginia. And I'm searching for the spiciness from the Orientals. And that's the thing, when you're trying to review a pipe tobacco, you're not fully sitting back and enjoying the smoke the way you should. You're searching for the nuances within the bowl. But if I was sitting back of an evening in the garden with a nice beer, or a whiskey, or increasingly these days a green or herbal tea. I'm drinking a lot more green and herbal teas. Then sitting back, I would be enjoying my smoke. It's this is a type of taste that I really like in pipe tobaccos. But trying to pick out the nuances of this tobacco for the sake of this review, I'm obviously getting that Latakia-ness, that delicious, earthy, campfirey. You know, I always equate the primarily taste you get from Latakia as similar to the taste you get from a good peated whiskey. It's that earthy quality in your mouth. But it's not punchy in terms of Latakia. The Virginia's doing its trick as well, and there's a fair amount of sweetness coming through in this.
Smoking my pipe. Like a whisper through the cornfield comes a gentle evening breeze. At the doorway of my cottage I recall old memories.
Yes, there is some something of the Oriental spice coming through as well. It's a very well balanced tobacco.
Smoking my pipe. Smoking my pipe.
It's fantastic. Another interesting thing about Squadron Leader, because this is produced, as I say, in a time-honoured fashion, it's usually in smaller batches than it would be in a big industrial tobacco manufacturer. So you can get differences in Squadron Leader from tin to tin. You know, the leaf fuse can be slightly different from batch to batch. Different batches of leaves delivered to the Samuel Gawith Hoggarth factory can have subtle differences, and this can add to a difference in what you're getting, a subtle difference in what you're getting from Squadron Leader from one tin to another. However, the basic core of what makes Squadron Leader is there, is very much there. So we're getting that earthy Latakia taste that anyone who smokes English blends will be familiar with. If you're an English lover and you've never tried Squadron Leader and you get a tin, then you won't be disappointed with this. It does deliver on the all-important Latakia experience, but there is a sweetness from the Virginia, and there is some spiciness from the Orientals, almost like a Perique type thing. I don't think that is Perique in you, but it's definitely got a little bit of a Perique vibe drifting through the smoke. And as I say, it goes really well with the beer. Lakibach. Fine beer. The room note on here probably wouldn't be acceptable to a non-smoker. But it's a very, like I say, it's a traditional tobacco aroma. It doesn't smell at all like cigarettes. What it does give is a rich, earthy, delicious, just delicious. So that's Squadron Leader from Samuel Gawith and Gawith Hoggarth. Now, once more, one big company after the Scandel from many years ago. And Bach Premium Ale from the Wye Valley, brewed on the banks of the River Wye. A delicious combination. So cheers, Yakida, Solange, thanks for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, let's chat this, get the conversation going. And above all, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, then please do so. It's free, it doesn't cost you a penny, and it does help the channel get noticed on the YouTube. And this is going to be funny when I try to pronounce this, because I can't do it. I've even Googled how to pronounce this word, can't do it. On the YouTube, algorithm, whatever it is, it helps us get noticed on there if you please subscribe. So that's all for now. Cheers, Solange, Yakida, come back soon to the Tainted Tavern.